Tonight, John Amaechi will be with us to talk about his touching and candid memoir, which he calls Man in the Middle.
I think there are a lot of interesting themes that you can pull from the book. I think it's important for people to know that there are, my life, 30-odd years of it, is represented in some part in this book of 304 pages, and only 30 of those pages mention anything remotely gay, because there's more to me than that. I think the theme that I like to pull out of the book is the fact that you can, the most unlikely of people in circumstances that are perhaps improbable can become extraordinary. I mean, again and again I recount how in my childhood I was definitely the fat kid that hid in the corner of the library, that the person who wanted to be invisible, part of that clique in school that nobody really wanted to interact with. And to show people, to model for people that it's possible to go from that to something more and better.
Who were you, do you think, before you were an athlete?
Oof. I never really considered myself an athlete. I'm a person who played basketball, and I played well for a time. I don't know, I think when you try and pare people down, something as complex as a human being, you try and pare them down to one definition, you do everybody a disservice. People should have to learn to take more, of a diverse look at people. I am part scholar, but not as smart as people think I am. I am part philanthropist, but not as giving as people think I am. And many, many different aspects. And the athletics, the basketball was a really important part of my life, but certainly not anything that I want to be defined by, not even at the time. Even as I played, people asked me the question, are you a basketball player? No, I play basketball for the Magic, for the Jazz, for whomever, but I have an interest in, social policy. I have an interest in the well-being of young people and their advancement. I have an interest in being a psychologist. This is a better description.
You see this word throughout the book, goals. You talk about goals when you were young, you talk about goals when you were playing ball, you talk about goals now. Has that always been an important part of your life?
Yeah, I just don't think, you don't make progress in this world. You don't become anything other than mundane, average, a Xerox copy of something that has been before, if you don't set goals, if you don't have aspirations and dreams. And I look at that as being central to most people's lives. You have to have some idea, some passion for something that is not yet within your grasp. And I certainly had that in lots of different areas, though. Basketball was one of them. In my scholarship, my intellectual achievement is another area. Learning more about myself is another area. I have goals in all these different places that kind of take you on your journey.
When you first set out to, you first decided when you were younger, all right, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try to make it in the NBA in America. Your mother, you made this pronouncement to your mother, I'm going to do this. And she was, I think, concerned, it seems, when you write about she didn't want you to be defined simply by the quality of your game. And you write this, that she was asking you something. She said, simply, stripped of your physical, material, and social likeness, who are you on the inside, really? What is your essence? What was she getting at there?
Yeah, she wanted me to recognize that, sometimes people think that by simply achieving great things, that will make them great. It will make them whole and understanding of themselves. And she wanted me to start off by understanding myself, by taking away, yes, I'm 6'9", but remove that from the equation. Take away the color of my skin, take away my relationships with my family and those kind of bonds. As an entity within myself, would I recognize myself? She used the phrase, would I recognize my soul in the dark? And being able to come to a point where, without describing yourself in terms of whether you're a mother, father, brother, partner, without addressing yourself in terms of your achievements or your job, could you describe yourself in a way that you could actually recognize yourself? And I don't think many people can. I don't think many people even contemplate it. When most people describe themselves, they say, hi, I'm Bob, I'm an engineer. I went to this university, this is my partner, these are my children if they have them, this is where I live, this is they describe themselves, it's a shell that's around them, and yet you know nothing about them.
You hear that question all the time, what is it you do? As opposed to, Who are you?
Yes. Well, who are you is a much more intrusive question,
Right.
for starters.
Yeah.
But it also is a much more difficult question to answer.
Of course.
And it's much more comfortable for people to decide whether they like people or don't like people on the basis of what they do, rather than who they are. Because you got to, when you come to the conclusion that you like somebody for who they are, that's a commitment. Because now you have to stick with them. Because you know their essence, you know you like them, and they may make bad decisions, they may go through rough times or great times, but you stick with them because you know who they are. You know, you like somebody who's an architect and they stop being an architect, you can stop liking them. It's easier. It's easier for people.
You put together a plan. I mean, you actually wrote out a plan, and some of it was, okay, I need to develop this part of my game. But it seems like the most important part of it was the sort of the ethical part. I think you even described it in some ways as a kind of a moral document.
Yeah, I'm wary of getting into the moral thing, but yes, I think there's a great sense of if you are a person who starts off with your mother asking you about your essence and who you are, then the plan that you develop is one that's much about your personal development as it is about your achievements. There was definitely parts in the plan that were about, you know, got to work on my free throw shooting and my conditioning. There were definitely parts that were very practical. These are the deadlines for applying to high schools and universities in America. This is the amount of money we had, which wasn't very much, to get me over there. So there were lots of practical things in there as well, but a lot of it was about what type of person are you going to become, not just what type of job are you going to do. A lot of it was about understanding myself and my own personal development as I moved forward, and making sure that I didn't end up a successful person who didn't have the kind of characteristics that I would be proud of.
The decision you made to not sign with the Los Angeles Lakers and to give up a huge, an immense amount of money, I think $17 million, and go back to Orlando, where you had felt comfortable and appreciated, like you were part of, you described the collection of players there as anti-superstars, I think it was. Talk about what was going on and about that decision, because that seemed important.
I think that team was an early example of how a really diverse group of people. I mean, I described the starting five the other day to a group of people, and at one point it was a French-speaking Muslim, a born-again Christian, a person who I described in the kindest possible way as the whitest person in the NBA. Right. A guy who I also would describe as coming straight out of Boys in the Hood, and then, you know, a tea-drinking gay in the mix. And this group of people, we played for each other. We knew our strengths and our weaknesses. We knew at what time each of us could excel. And there were no time, though we knew that individually that player would cream us. There was no time that we felt overwhelmed because we as a unit, there was never a point where one person's success became too much. If one player was playing well and he wasn't the player who normally scored all the points, we didn't care because we'd win. We'll ride that. And if the next day it was somebody else, we'll work with that. It's a rare thing indeed in professional sports, not just the NBA. That's a rare thing indeed for that amount of selflessness. The idea that we had a group of people who, again, not a bunch of people who claimed to love the game and worrying about the contract next year, a group of people who just wanted to win. An amazing experience I had there, and my best experience playing on the floor was definitely with that group of people. What I actually want to do is change culture for kids and change society. And if I wouldn't have done this in order to impact 300 guys in the NBA, or even a bunch of kids who play sports. This is a much wider issue of equality, one that it still has been started to be addressed in terms of race, but still needs to be addressed, has started to be addressed in terms of gender, and still needs to be addressed, and one that people are very hesitant to address when it comes to gay people. I wanted to open up a dialogue so that, at the very least, the lovely woman who came up to me in New York, of all places, the other day, and shook my hand and said, in a wonderful way, "I'm so glad you did this. Before you came out, I didn't realize black people could be gay." You know, there is a level of ignorance that is astonishing, a level of stereotyping that feeds fear and is convenient for many people, that I'm hoping to try and address in terms of every diversity. Creating an equality of opportunity is what I'm trying to do.